Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you knew the words, but when it was your turn to speak, your mind just went blank? You panic. Your heart beats faster. You start translating in your head, and suddenly, the simplest sentence feels impossible. You're not alone. Millions of English learners around the world experience this exact moment every single day. And here's the shocking truth. It's not because your English is bad. Yes, you heard that right. You don't freeze because you lack vocabulary. You freeze because your brain doesn't know what to say next. Chapter 1. The Silent Killer. Why you freeze. When speaking English, there are 3 silent reasons behind this. First, you're translating word by word. Instead of thinking in ideas, your brain is busy converting from your native language into English. That delay kills your flow. Second, you're afraid of making mistakes. So you start filtering every sentence before you say it. And when you filter too much, nothing comes out. Third, and this is the most important, you don't have a system to generate ideas. Think about it. Fluent speakers don't just know more English. They know how to keep talking. They always have something to say, even if their English isn't perfect. Meanwhile, you might know the same words, but without ideas, you stop. So, the real problem is not English. The real problem is idea generation. And once you understand this, everything changes. Because fluency is not about memorizing more vocabulary. Fluency is about having a simple system that helps you create ideas instantly, expand your thoughts, and keep speaking without freezing. In this series, you're going to learn exactly how to do that. You'll learn how to never run out of things to say. You'll learn how to think faster, speak longer, and sound more natural without needing perfect grammar. And most importantly, you'll finally break free from that silent moment where your mind goes blank. Because from now on, you won't just learn English. You'll learn how to speak. Chapter 2. The Idea Engine. How to always have something to say. Most people think speaking English is about finding the right words. But in reality, the real struggle happens before the words even appear. It happens at the level of ideas. When someone asks you a simple question like, "What do you think about traveling?" Your problem isn't vocabulary. It's that your brain doesn't know how to organize a response quickly. So you hesitate. But here's the key shift. You don't need better English first. You need a simple way to build ideas. Fluent speakers are not randomly talking. They are following invisible structures in their mind. And once you learn that structure, speaking becomes much easier. Here is one of the most powerful frameworks you can use. Opinion, reason. Example. Let's see how it works. If someone asks, "Do you like traveling?" Instead of saying only, "Yes, I like it," you expand. "I really like traveling because it helps me relax and explore new cultures." For example, last year I visited a small coastal town, and it completely changed the way I see life. That's not more vocabulary. That's better structure. You start with your opinion. You explain why, and then you give a real example. This alone can turn a 1-second answer into a 2-0-second response. But we can go further. There are 5 simple thinking triggers that can help you generate ideas instantly. Why? Explain your reason. How? Describe the process. What if? Imagine a situation. Compare. Show differences or similarities. Personal story. Share your experience. Let's take one topic. Working from home. You can say, "I think working from home is more comfortable because you don't have to commute." For example, "I can save a lot of time every morning." Then add a comparison. However, compared to working in an office, it can feel a bit lonely sometimes. Now your answer becomes deeper and more natural. You're no longer stuck. Another important point. You don't need complex ideas. Simple ideas are enough if you expand them. Many learners wait for perfect thoughts before speaking. That's a mistake. Fluent speakers don't wait. They take a simple idea and grow it step by step. So next time you speak, don't search for better words. Start with a basic opinion. Add one reason, then one example. And if you still have time, add another layer. That's how you build an idea engine in your mind. And once that engine starts running, you will never feel empty again when it's your turn to speak. Chapter 3. The Magic of Filler Thinking. Buy time like a native. There is one moment that destroys your confidence faster than anything else. It's the moment right after someone asks you a question, and you feel pressure to answer immediately. Silence feels uncomfortable. Your brain rushes. And because you try to respond too fast, your sentences become broken or disappear completely. But here's something most learners don't realize. Fluent speakers do not answer instantly. They buy time, and they do it so naturally that you don't even notice. This is where filler thinking becomes powerful. Fillers are not useless sounds. They are tools that give your brain time to organize ideas while you are still speaking. Instead of freezing, you stay in control. For example, instead of jumping straight into an answer, you can say, "Well, that's an interesting question," or "Let me think about that for a second." These simple phrases do two things at once. They reduce pressure, and they give your brain a few extra seconds to build a response. But fillers are not just for thinking. They also help you structure your ideas clearly. You can say, "I think there are a couple of reasons for that," or "There are two main points I want to mention." Now, you are not just buying time, you are guiding your speech. Another powerful type of filler is softening language. Instead of sounding too direct or unsure, you can say, "It depends on the situation," or "In my opinion." By opinion. This makes your speech feel more natural and more human. However, there is a mistake you must avoid. Many learners overuse fillers like or repeat the same phrase again and again. That makes you sound nervous, not fluent. The goal is not to fill space randomly. The goal is to create thinking space with intention. You want to sound like someone who is organizing thoughts, not someone who is lost. Here's a simple way to practice this. Take any question. For example, what do you usually do on weekends? Before answering, force yourself to begin with a thinking phrase. Well, usually. Let me think. Then continue your answer. At first, it might feel unnatural, but with repetition, it becomes automatic. And once it becomes automatic, something important happens. You stop fearing silence because you know how to handle it. You don't rush anymore. You don't panic. You control the pace of the conversation. And when you control the pace, your ideas have space to grow. That's when speaking starts to feel smooth, not because your English suddenly improved, but because you finally gave your brain the time it needed. Chapter 4. Speak in patterns, not words. Most learners build their English one word at a time. They memorize vocabulary lists, study definitions, and try to remember meanings in isolation. But when it's time to speak, those words don't come together smoothly. Why? Because language is not built word by word. It's built in patterns. Fluent speakers don't construct sentences from scratch every time they speak. They reuse familiar structures again and again. These patterns act like shortcuts, allowing them to express ideas quickly without thinking about every single word. For example, instead of trying to build a sentence piece by piece, they rely on ready-made structures like, "The reason why I think this is because," "One of the best things about this is," "I've noticed that." These are not random sentences. They are flexible frameworks. You can plug different ideas into them and instantly create natural speech. Let's take a simple topic. Learning English. Instead of saying, "I like English," it is useful. You can say, "One of the best things about learning English is that it allows you to communicate with people from all over the world." Same idea, completely different impact. The second sentence sounds more natural, more confident, and more fluent, not because it uses difficult vocabulary, but because it follows a strong pattern. This is how you should train your brain, not by collecting words, but by collecting structures. Start building your own pattern library. Every time you hear a useful sentence, don't just understand it, save it. Practice it. Repeat it. For example, the reason why I enjoy this is because now, change the ending. Because it helps me relax. Because it saves time. Because it makes me feel more confident. One structure. Endless possibilities. Another powerful habit is transforming one idea into multiple sentences using different patterns. Let's say your idea is, I like coffee. You can say, I enjoy drinking coffee in the morning. One of my daily habits is having a cup of coffee. The reason why I like coffee is because it helps me stay focused. Now you are no longer dependent on one way of speaking. You have options. And when you have options, you don't get stuck. Many learners hesitate because they are trying to find the perfect sentence. Fluent speakers don't do that. They choose a familiar pattern and move forward. That's the difference. So instead of asking, what words should I use? Start asking, what pattern can I use? Because once patterns become automatic, speaking stops feeling like building and starts feeling like flowing. Chapter 5. Storytelling. The secret weapon of fluent speakers. There is a big difference between someone who answers questions and someone people actually enjoy listening to. That difference is storytelling. Most learners give short, flat answers. They respond with facts, not experiences. And because of that, conversations die quickly. For example, if someone asks, what did you do last weekend? A typical answer might be, I stayed at home and watched a movie. It's correct. But it ends the conversation. Now listen to this. Last weekend, I planned to go out, but it suddenly started raining really heavily. So I decided to stay home, made some coffee, and watched a movie I had been postponing for months. Surprisingly, it turned out to be one of the most relaxing weekends I've had. Same grammar level, but now it feels alive. That's the power of storytelling. You don't need complicated vocabulary to tell a story. You just need a simple structure. Beginning, problem, action, result. This structure gives your speech direction. Let's break it down. The beginning sets the context. Last weekend, I planned to go out. The problem introduces something interesting, but it suddenly started raining. The action shows what you did. So, I decided to stay home and watch a movie. The result adds meaning, and it turned out to be really relaxing. A. Now your answer is no longer just information. It becomes an experience. Another important point is emotion. Stories become engaging when you include how you felt. Instead of saying, I was tired, you can say, I was so tired that I didn't want to do anything except lie on the couch. Small detail. Big difference. You can also make your story more natural by adding time markers. At first, then, after that, in the end. These help your listener follow your story easily. And here's the key advantage. When you tell a story, you don't run out of things to say. Because you are not inventing ideas, you are remembering them. Your life becomes your content. Every small moment, what you ate, what you saw, what surprised you can become a story. Many learners think they need interesting lives to speak interesting English. That's not true. You just need to describe simple things in a slightly richer way. So next time someone asks you a question, don't give a short answer. Turn it into a story. Add a situation. Add a small problem. Add what happened next. And suddenly, you're no longer struggling to speak. You're sharing something real. And that's when people start listening. Chapter 6. Think in English. Without forcing it. One of the most common pieces of advice you hear is, think in English. But when you actually try to do it, it feels impossible. Your brain automatically goes back to your native language. You translate, you hesitate, and everything slows down again. So the problem is not that the advice is wrong. The problem is that most people try to do it in the wrong way. They try to jump directly from translating everything to thinking like a native speaker overnight. That gap is too big. Instead, you need a bridge. The first step is to stop aiming for complex thoughts. You don't need to think in perfect English. You need to think in simple English. For example, instead of trying to think, I should probably consider the advantages and disadvantages before making a decision. You simplify it. I need to think more before I decide. Same meaning. Less pressure. When your thoughts become simpler, your brain can process them faster. The second step is to connect English with images, not with your native language. When you see a chair, don't think of the word in your language first and then translate it. Just see the object and label it directly in English. Chair. This creates a direct connection in your brain. No translation. No delay. You can practice this anywhere. Look around you right now and describe what you see. There is a table in front of me. My phone is on the desk. It's a bit quiet here. At first, this feels slow. Another powerful method is self-talk. Throughout your day, describe what you are doing in simple English. I'm opening my laptop. I'm checking my messages. I feel a bit tired today. You are not trying to impress anyone. You are training your brain to stay in English longer. Even 1 or 2 minutes at a time is enough to start building the habit. There is also something important to understand. You will still translate sometimes. That's normal. Fluency is not about eliminating translation completely. It's about reducing it gradually. So don't fight your brain. Guide it. Start with small, simple thoughts. Repeat them daily. And slowly, something changes. You stop searching for words. You stop building sentences piece by piece. Instead, ideas start appearing directly in English. Not perfectly, but naturally. And that's the moment when speaking begins to feel less like effort and more like a reflex. Chapter 7. Build your daily speaking system. Knowing what to do is not the same as doing it consistently. Many learners understand the techniques, how to build ideas, use patterns, tell stories, but still feel stuck after a few days. Not because the methods don't work, but because there is no system. Fluency is not built in one moment. It is built through repetition, and repetition only happens when you have a simple, realistic routine. You don't need hours every day. What you need is structure. A strong daily speaking system can be as short as 15 to 30 minutes. The key is how you use that time. Start with input. Spend a few minutes listening or reading something in English. It can be a short video, a podcast, or even a paragraph from an article. The goal is not to understand everything, but to collect ideas and notice how sentences are formed. Then move to idea practice. Take one simple topic from what you just heard. For example, food, habits, work, or daily life. Now apply what you've learned. Form an opinion. Add a reason. Give an example. Don't overthink. Keep it simple, but complete. Next comes the most important step. Speaking out loud. Not in your head. Out loud. Even if you are alone. Say your answer. Expand it. Turn it into a short story. Use fillers if needed. Try different sentence patterns. This is where real progress happens. Because speaking is a physical skill, not just a mental one. Another powerful technique is repetition with variation. Say the same idea again, but in a different way. Change the structure. Add a new detail. Make it longer. This trains flexibility. And flexibility is what prevents you from getting stuck in real conversations. You can also record yourself. Not to judge your accent, but to observe your thinking process. Do you pause too much? Do you stop early? Do you repeat the same structure? Awareness helps you improve faster. Consistency matters more than intensity. 15 minutes every day is more effective than 3 hours once a week. Because your brain needs regular exposure to build automatic responses. And over time, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. You stop preparing sentences. You start expressing thoughts. You stop worrying about what to say. You just say it. That's when speaking becomes natural. Not perfect, but real.